I very much doubt that it's going to have much of an implication for the annual plan, if any. But we're happy to provide it.
Yeah. I thought I'd mention the Cycleway program too, because I got asked a question about that this morning. Although we've been very clear that the pushing out to 8 years had nothing to do with the finances, had everything to do with capacity. And so what this has now become is a stretch target. So in the long-term planning process, we are going to have to find within the council the capacity to deliver the Cycleway program within 5 years. That was very much a desire of the public who submitted on it, and it wasn't. I think that this is a great opportunity to sort of really do push a target and to achieve it. So that's going to require the long-term plan to really, for us to focus on the long-term plan and making sure that we deliver on that. Phil?
So look, I agree with that, but can I just add to that, although we've got a recommendation on it and we come to that, but clearly that the achievement of that will be subject to the technical feasibility of it.
Yeah, but we have to make it happen.
Yep.
That's what a stretch target's for.
Absolutely.
It's a can-do council. We can do it, right.
Again, I'm going back to when the agreement was around doing the 3-year plan. We were noting that there would be schedules for indicative capital programs that were longer than 3 years as part of normal council business, facilities rebuild and cycleways program. So I think having a schedule of the cycleways program and the changes or the would be really important, as with the facilities as well. And this ties in again to that DCs thing. So having those two schedules, I think, would be really good.
Yeah, I think that a lot of this is going to be focused on the long-term plan, and it is not an ideal situation that we find ourselves in, but it is the situation that it is, and we have to address what we have in front of us in the best way that we possibly can. Are there any other questions for staff? And Pauline?
A small clarification on page 12 with the head-to-head walkway and the perimeter walkway. Is the head-to-head walkway also the Banks Peninsula walkway? Are you suggesting substituting 50k from the perimeter back to the Banks Peninsula? Is that the head-to-head? I'm just not sure, a bit confused.
But my understanding is that the head-to-head is just bringing forward the activity from 15-16 to 14-15, so it's not substituting for anything else.
No, but in F, substitute 50,000 back to the perimeter from the Banks Peninsula walkway.
Mm-hmm.
Is the Banks Peninsula different than the head-to-head then? I'm not sure. They are, okay. So, was the 50k being substituted from Banks Peninsula, was that the total set aside, or was that just reducing an allocation?
As I understand it, it's reducing it
by 50k.
Trying to accelerate the perimeter walkway's been languishing for a wee while, and this is some money for signage and things to give it a kickstart.
Okay, thank you.
Just have one.
Yep, Glenn.
Please, yeah, the 1.2%, 1.27% forecast operating deficit in relation to the consent costs and the flooding costs. How does that split? Is that mostly can that mostly be attributed to the consenting costs? The 1.2%.
That's actually a very difficult question, because the operating deficit at the end is the remainder after all of your operating expenditure and operating revenues. So we see the building control area being reset as being 10 mil over budget. However, we've found significant savings within the year of around 9 million as a rough order of thumb. We've then subsequently had subvention payments come in 1.3 lower, and we've had the flooding costs of 2.8 mil. which happened past February. So, and also within that, there's all the other revenue and expenditure as well. So I couldn't pin it on any particular item. The way the year has flowed through, it's been the impact of the flooding, the emergency responses required there, and the subvention payments that have captured us at the end of the year. But it's the whole mix that's created the operating deficit.
What was the split between CIAL and City Care? So you already knew about City Care when we went out with the annual plan, but we didn't know about CIAL. So what was the split between them?
I'm sorry,
City Care
I
was...
don't have the figures. I know City Care was around 20 million, but I don't have the other figures, I'm sorry. But really, as I said, we did know about City Care early in the year. We didn't know about the airport until after we'd set the plan.
Well, what percentage was CIAL?
I'd have to go away and look at the numbers and bring them back to you. A lot smaller than City Care.
So, oh, okay. So maybe we should have budgeted for that right at the start.
Yes, and as I said, we've changed our process so that we don't get caught in that position for next year.
Right, Yanni.
I did ask this question prior to the meeting yesterday, but when we come back, it would be good to have it. And that was, we've got a lot of money on for facilities rebuild in 13-14 and 14-15 and 15-16, and I just wanted to understand if that amount has changed at all, and a list of what facilities, if any, that we've got programmed under that. Is it possible to get that information when we come back after lunch?
Can you explain further what you mean by facilities rebuild, please?
So project ID 2089 has facilities rebuild expenditure of 21 million in 13-14, 37 million for this year, 14-15, and 38.7 for 15-16. And I just wanted to understand, is that money still on track? Has it changed? And do we have a list of any facilities under that will be funded?
I can try.
Great, thank you.
Yep, Vicky?
Can I also clarify, associated with that, the Betterment and Infrastructure and Betterment Fund, is that all assumed, I appreciate it's just borrowing with a different tag, is that all assumed to be spent in the coming capital year, in the coming year? It doesn't matter if you don't know the answer now, but after lunch would be helpful.
We'll check.
Thanks.
That's a very good question.
Thank you.
Sorry.
Andrew?
And in relation to the questions that you've been fielding around what are essentially capital expenses, I notice on page 98 of the draft plan, you've got a 2.25 million cost of borrowing in there. That obviously was current at the time the draft plan was put out. Clearly, there are capital expenses which are being deferred, put back, brought forward all the time, and there are some questions that will be answered this afternoon around that. Are there any changes as a result of any capital deferrals to that cost of borrowing that we should be taking into account as well?
No change really to the cost of borrowing, because we had put hedging, which is when you go out and lock in an interest rate in advance. We had done that, and we've always done that for some years. So any change from deferrals would possibly be more towards what a project would cost to replace rather than the cost of funding it.
Is there any other? Oh, yeah, Andrew?
So if a capital project that we expected to deliver in the draft budget in the next year was then deferred out to the 15-16 year, that would be funds that we weren't spending in the 14-15 year that we had expected to spend, which would potentially reduce the borrowing requirement, which in turn would reduce the amount of interest payable on that borrowing.
Yes.
Is where I'm coming from.
Yes.
So that must then make a change to our operational outgoings, or to our outgoings for the cost of borrowing over that period, which in turn would have an effect.
That is so, but what we do as part of the budget process is we actually budget for quite a large carry forward at the end of the year, which is based on actual observation of what's been delivered in past years. So the plan might say, here's what it is, but from a budgeting point of view of determining the interest and the interest expense, we make some assumptions regarding how much we think will actually be delivered. the year that will be caught out is the year when the capital program people deliver everything they say they're going to do.
Has that ever happened before?
No.
Jimmy?
Thank you, Mayor. One question. My concern is regarding to the draft, the annual plan. The staff, the original, to defer the sum of the capital project from the original 2014 to 15 to the 2015 and 16. However, we went through the public consultation, and the community have a different view, and through their submission. My question is there any financial impact if those projects, because before 1 year, if we kind of use the building and infrastructure, the betterment fund, we go ahead, just consider progress. We need to go ahead to borrow this fund from the betterment fund. Then next year can kind of offset to the current year. So is there any financial impact?
So I think the financial impact depends upon whether it's prioritisation of spend that was already assumed in budget, and that will go back to Deputy Mayor Buck's question around the Betterment Fund usage profile. So we'll come back on that. So whether it's reprioritisation or whether it's additional to the profile, it will have an impact if it's additional to profile. It will have no impact if it's reprioritisation.
Are there any more questions? All right. Well, thank you very much for being on the receiving end of that. And I will adjourn the meeting until 2 o'clock this afternoon. Thank you.